Swine It.
Welcome to the Swine It podcast Roundtable. This is a new series of episodes created by the Swine It podcast and Provimi, where we'll have roundtables with experts of the global swine industry, tackling subjects that can influence the producer's bottom line.
My name is 𝒑𝒐𝒅𝒄𝒂𝒔𝒕 𝑔𝒂𝒂𝒃𝒍𝒆, your host for today's episode.
Provimi supports the podcast's goal of helping pork producers improve their systems and businesses. Let's get back to the podcast.
Hello everyone. Today we have Dr. 𝒕𝒊𝒏𝒆𝒊𝒕 and Mark 𝐏𝐫𝐵𝒆𝒊𝒕, and we're going to chat about pig production in times of economic uncertainty. How are you, Mark?
I'm very well, Marcio. Thanks for having both of us today.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys' time. How are you, Chad?
Doing great.
Good.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Let's get rolling here. So, Mark, I want to start with you. If you can just share about your career so far and also how you got involved in pig production, that would be great.
I sure will. Thank you again, Marcio. So, I've been with Cargill Animal Nutrition for the better part of 23 years. Started as a 1994 graduate out of Iowa State University with a bachelor's in animal science. To your question around involvement in the industry, I grew up on a diversified crop and livestock farm in southeast Iowa. And part of that operation was a farrow-to-finish pork production system. And so have always had an affinity for the industry. That's really why I went to Iowa State to be involved in the program there. And went to work for Cargill in 1994 right out of that bachelor's program. I did spend about 5 years of my career, kind of mid-career, as the live production manager for a large commercial pork production system.
Nice.
In the neighborhood of 60,000-70,000 sows, and so have both allied industry experience as well as live production experience firsthand.
Very nice. Very good. How about you, Chad?
I grew up on a small and diversified livestock farm. So both of my parents grew up on farms, and then they worked off the farm. So growing up, we used livestock as a way to stay connected to agriculture. Went to the University of Illinois for my bachelor's and master's degrees, and spent time there with the Ellis lab, and got very involved in pig production and swine science there at the University of Illinois. And then did my PhD at Iowa State University with Dr. John Patience. And then I've been with Provimi for about 6.5 years now. And my main focus is nutrition consulting and working directly with pig producers in the field.
Cool. So let's jump right into the topic at hand here. Everyone is aware of the craziness that we are going through right now with COVID-19. What shifts have you both seen in the last few weeks among pig producers?
Yeah, I can jump in, Marcio, and I think it's important to remember that while we've definitely got a situation going on relative to this global pandemic, we have two other very, very important issues that we're dealing with in the pork industry proper. That is the continued saga of African swine fever around the globe, along with a fairly new happening relative to oil and the global oil markets and the change in ethanol demand and the resultant production that is being caused by a global oil price war. And so we really are in a situation where we've got three fights that we're battling all at the same time. And that's what really, from my perspective, makes this current situation really, really unique. Relative to the COVID-19 specific situation, I think our biggest thing we're seeing is the supply chain is working as hard as it can, and Cargill is no exception, to take care of its people first. Whether you're a member of allied industry and you're running a nutrition facility like we do at Cargill, or you're a pork producer and you've got 10 or 15 independent sow farms, each with their own micro population of employees, or you're a pork processor with a very large population of employees on one site, I think the biggest shift we've seen is every producer we work with is feverishly working to figure out how do we maintain our employee base in this very, very uncertain and for most of those people's families, scary situations. So from my perspective, that's the biggest issue we're working through right now with most of our producers. Chad, you probably have a different view on it. How about you?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's thinking about the people and how do we continue to remain positive and reassure people that we're doing the right thing and we're protecting their health and well-being first. But from a nutrition standpoint, yeah, we're seeing a lot of moving pieces today, and a lot of that, some of it's driven by COVID-19, but other things really driven around crude oil demand and changes there that have really made some wild swings occur in ingredient pricing and therefore the best economic drivers in our feed formulation.
Interesting. And I'll throw the dumb question out there, guys. I don't have a problem with that. Can you elaborate a little more on the oil, how the oil plays there, guys? I'm new to this.
Yeah, and so certainly this would largely be Chad and I's assessment of the current situation. But the recent happenings in the global oil industry really revolve around Russia and Saudi Arabia's unwillingness to cooperate on production controls. Basically, those two oil powerhouses have said, we're going to continue to produce oil, and we're going to do that regardless of what the price of the global marketplace dictates. And so what we've had happen is that has directly impacted the ability of the U.S. ethanol industry to generate a profit in what was already a very tenuous P&L situation.
Interesting.
And so what has happened now is with an inability to sell ethanol into a global market that's awash in oil, and now we're below $20 a barrel in the oil market.
Right.
We have eliminated ethanol production, and consequently, as most of our customers would vehemently agree with, drastically changed the design of most of the diets in the industry as we've been forced to remove distillers' dried grains.
Yeah, very cool. Very interesting. Yeah, that makes total sense. Thanks, Mark. Very good. So from overall, I think you touched in some of those, Mark. Now diving a little deeper from a business and production standpoint, what are your thoughts on the topic as from farm level, besides the people side of things? Anything else producers should be thinking right now?
Well, so, I think it goes without saying, Marcio, that everyone in the industry is in a cash-strapped situation right now for a variety of reasons, many of which we've already mentioned. And so I think the question becomes, how do we continue to try to get better every day? Because we can't stop getting better even though we're in the middle of a crisis. The thing that we've got to do as an industry is continue to keep our heads, keep focused on what our goals are, continue to get better every day, and deal with the problems that come up one problem at a time. And so amidst the reality that we're in a cash-strapped situation, I think the critical thing that we're trying to help our customers do is continue to make crisp decisions at the speed of business, not wait a month to make a change, not wait 2 months to make a change, but when we know something's right, do it today as opposed to doing it tomorrow. And Chad may have another opinion on that.
No, I think that's a great summary. I think from a nutrition standpoint, we've got to be flexible, and really it comes down to what's the best economic outcome for the producer. So, it's a lot of the same things that are at play in a non-crisis situation. So really understanding biological responses to key economic drivers like energy, amino acids, fiber, and really understanding what's the best economic way, what's the best way to feed a pig from an economic standpoint, from a profitability standpoint. So, in this situation, we've got a lot of the key economic inputs changing from a price standpoint. And we've even got the output, we've got pork prices that have been changing rapidly as well. And so we've got to be able to be flexible and have the robustness of economic modeling of nutrition to be able to determine what's the best feeding program based on today's economics.
Right.
Marcio, I might add to that, the reality is, and I think our producer base will appreciate the comment, at least, even if it is painfully difficult to continue to deal with. We're losing money as an industry right now in a lot of cases, right? And so the need to be nimble has to be driven by the reality that if we're not going to be in a situation where we're profitable, we have to work hard every single day to minimize loss. And that mandates, in many cases, changing decisions on a day-to-day basis around something that might have worked last week, but now, because the reality has changed, we got to change quickly. And so we are in a situation today where we're getting up every day and trying to make sure we help the industry as a whole and our clients specifically manage through this cash crunch by losing as little money as possible.
Right. Are you guys seeing some packing plants either closing or reducing volumes there?
So my understanding from a number of discussions yesterday, Marcio, is that we have a number of things going on. Again, all related to these three what appear to be disparate events of COVID, ASF, and a global oil industry in disarray. And so what you have right now is we have at least 2 or 3 situations in the industry, North America as a whole, right? Canada and the U.S., where some packing plants have been shuttered because of the global pandemic issue, right? So we've got 2 or 3 scenarios where employees haven't shown up to work or they've walked off the job. And now what do those plants do, or where do those hogs go? Those hogs have been shunted to other industry facilities. And so on top of a very large market-ready supply that we already were facing, now we're trying to cram the same amount of hogs to kill on a weekly basis into a more limited number of facilities. And so the industry contacts that I was able to visit with yesterday have said the shackle is full. We're going to be pushing record kills for the next number of weeks in front of us, as long as we continue to deal with a shutdown or a partial shutdown in some of the harvest facilities that we have historically been able to utilize.
Cool. No, that makes sense. Chad, from a nutrition standpoint, if any of these packing plants either reduce their volume, it's kind of funny, right? Because we always want to increase growth, but in this type of situation, we might want to reduce the growth. Any overall thoughts there that you can think of?
Yeah, I think, it's going to be very situational dependent. So some producers may have a reduction of 5 to 10% of their market loads being cut. It may get, hopefully, as of time of this recording, there isn't a major widespread closure, but there are some smaller closures, smaller reductions in the amount of pigs going to market. So I think, we start to just go back to our basics on economic and biological modeling and look at things like energy levels. So if we need to stretch out a pig supply over a number of weeks, we're going to look at things like lowering energy, maybe decreasing amino acid content, so maybe decreasing our lysine to energy ratios. Technologies or nutrients like tryptophan may be something that we can back off on. So as the extra gain becomes less and less valuable, there are things that we can do from a nutrition standpoint to try to maybe pull back on costs, to potentially slow growth. I don't think there's anything from a nutritional standpoint that we're doing today that we're going to drastically reduce growth rate, at least at this point, but there are some things we can do to help mitigate the situation.
Yeah, very interesting.
And Marcio, what's very dynamic about the current situation is that we do have at least the potential, right? It's on certain days it feels very fleeting, but we at least have the potential for the export market to really kick in at some point. And so there's a very fine balance between slowing the entire production system down across all phases of production versus potentially maybe trying to find a way to slow down those late stage finishing animals. And that can be done through nutrition. It can be done through production management techniques like stocking density, and things along those lines as well. And so it's very dynamic. And that's why we continue to probably on this call talk about the need to be extremely nimble in your ability to make and execute decisions. And I think the folks that are going to come out of this in the best spot are just that, those folks that can make decisions very quickly, sound decisions, not rash decisions, but make decisions very quickly and execute those throughout their production system because it is extremely dynamic.
No, that makes sense. It's for me personally, it's the first time. I mean, 2008, 12 years ago, I probably, was not paying enough attention. First off, I was in Brazil on that time, but also first time in my life that I'm seeing a real big global crisis, if you will. So super interesting to learn more about, how to go through that. And something that I've seen, of course, we need to stay lean, right? And have lots of cash reserves in any type of business. Any overall business tips there, Mark, that you can think of? I know you've experienced more than one crisis there. I know you've touched on several different things. Anything else on that arena?
I think times like these are when you gotta look at every piece of your business, right? Tough to say at times, but are you long in the people department? We want to take care of every employee we've got, but we also need to make hard choices to ensure that the business continues to thrive and survive long term so that as many people have a job as possible. And so human resources is always an area that you have to continue to look at to be lean and efficient in the industry. From my perspective, you got to stay current, right? When we get into this game of dragging market-ready inventories, assuming we have shackles to kill, right? Mm-hmm. You've got to stay current because long-term that will give you the most ability to be dynamic in your decision-making. Once you take away that finishing space, now you're starting to limit the amount of decisions that you can make in a very, very quick manner. And so looking at people resources, staying current in your marketings, continuing to look for opportunities to drive nutrition costs out of the business. And that may sound funny coming from a nutrition company. We do understand that the more money we can help our customers drive out of the system, the better off they're going to be long term. And so those continuing decisions have to be front of mind and front and center in the process of getting up and every day running the business. And we continue to maybe beat on this particular call the need to look at those things every day is even more important right now when the dynamics are changing as quickly as they are.
Yes, that makes total sense. Now, Chad, one thing that, I've talked to nutritionists around the globe and producers as well. And we as nutritionists, we always talking about, right, income over feed cost and other things. Something that I've been digesting over the last several years is, and I want to know if you guys agree or your thoughts on this is, okay, if we're making money, it's probably that time that we are going to formulate a little more look into profit, meaning, okay, I might increase a little bit my nutrient levels to get more out of this and harvest more revenue. Now, in times like this, we need to change a little bit the strategy where we might be looking a little more to that minimal cost per pound or kilogram of gain. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think at all times we're focusing on how do we maximize profit for our pig producers. And in times where we do have an economic crisis or when the price of pork is low or price of inputs is high, minimum cost per pound or kilo of gain may be what our best, most profitable situation is. It's still a focus on profit, but it may be that the outcome or that you're looking for optimum profit is that minimum cost per kilo or cost per pound of gain.
Marcio, I'd add to that comment, profit is profit, right? Whether it's positive or negative, the equation that generates the result of profit is the same. And so at times, absolutely, we're going to help drive cost per pound of gain lower. Realize, however, that everybody's situation as a producer is unique. And the right answer for a particular producer might be, let's keep the hogs growing because of the cost of the ration, and maybe we market at a lighter weight, right, where that pig gets the least efficient out there at heavy weights. Maybe it makes most sense in terms of the equation of profit to lower our marketing weights. And I mentioned earlier in the call, continuing to keep current, so you have that flexibility in your pipeline. In general, Chad's right. Continuing to focus on cost per pound of gain in an economic crisis like this is definitely a concept that's front and center. I think that has to be balanced against the reality that every production system is different, and there are multiple levers that can be pulled to drive profit, whether that profit is a negative number or a positive number.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, just making sure that burn rate per month is lower, right? And at times like this, probably no one's going to be trying to invest money, probably just trying to keep that cash balance and cash flow and reduce that burn rate, right?
Yes. Yep.
Very good. That's very good. Chad and Mark, anything else before we wrap up this conversation?
I've got, I'd add one kind of overarching comment, Marcio, and that is the need for this industry to pull together. We've got to be careful that as an industry, nobody owns the truth, right? Solely as one entity in the industry. At times like this, it takes all of our collective intelligence and universal mind, you might even say, to fight our way through this and come out the other side for the benefit of all participants up and down the chain. And so my admonition to the producers out there is make sure you're visiting with as many people as you can around opportunities to do things differently, to continue to get more nimble, and to really operate at the speed of the world around us, which has changed drastically in the last 2 weeks. And so let's do that as an industry, not a group of siloed businesses within the industry. And I think we will all find a better outcome on the other side of it.
Right. That's very well said. Any parting comments, Chad?
I think that's a great ending to it. I think we've got to come together as an industry to make sure that we're doing the right things for our people and our pigs and our profitability.
Very good. Well, thanks a lot for our time, and it's been fun to chat with you, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks for having us, Marcio.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, please share our episodes with as many people as you can so we can continue to impact the life of swine professionals from around the globe with the wisdom of our great guests. Before you go, make sure to get in our waitlist for the Swine Talks Web Conference, the first online conference of the global swine industry, an update on hot topics, and we even gonna have some controversial topics of the global swine industry, so you can leverage that knowledge in your day-to-day. Go to swinetalks.com and get on our waitlist. We'll talk soon.